Sorry about that, team. Can everyone hear me now? Great. So our objectives really is to provide information to community board members on the representation review process, to gauge community board members' expectations, if there are any, and appetite for change, if there is any, and to update community boards on the proposed preliminary community consultation approach. So I've just popped in there a quote from the Local Government Commission. Representation reviews are undertaken by local authorities to ensure residents have fair and effective representation at local election. That's from the Local Government Commission. I'll just start with some background facts. The first issue to look at when undertaking a representation review is your electoral system, and that decision was made and with the first past the post to be retained for the 2025 training election. So that can be reviewed every 3 years unless there's been a poll. Māori wards are to be established for the 2025 and 2028 training elections. Now you may recall that there were some poll provisions that was in the Local Electoral Act that if a council made a decision, then it had to publicly notify that decision. And 5% of electors could petition that and call for a poll. Those provisions were removed in 2021. However, you will be aware that the coalition governments issued a statement at the end of last year. Now, this is all we have to go on is one sentence, but I'm putting it here in full so that everyone can understand what exactly has been released. Restore the right to local referendum on the establishment or ongoing use of Māori wards, including requiring a referendum on any wards established without referendum at the next local body elections. So my take on that is that if a council has resolved to establish Māori wards without a poll, and there's probably about 33 of them, then a poll must be held in conjunction with next year's local body elections. So that's regarding a Māori ward. Now, I appreciate that this is going to be quite confusing for electors. On one hand, we may well be having a poll on whether to establish, to retain Māori wards, and then also alongside that we'll have an election for a councillor for a Māori ward. So there's got to be some good PR around that, but it is what it is, and we just are waiting further information that will come out from the government. Māori wards does not apply to community boards. I often get asked that question, can we have Māori community boards? Under the legislation, no, it only applies to Māori wards. If a council establishes Māori wards, then a representation review must be undertaken for obvious reasons that everything changes. Under legislation, a representation review must be undertaken every 6 years. The last review was in 2021 for the 2022 elections. So the next representation review actually was due in 2027. But because of the Māori ward establishment, a review must be undertaken this year for 2025. Our current arrangements, I won't bore you with these. There they are there, the Mayor and 9 councillors elected from 4 wards and 20 community board members elected from 5 community boards. And there's just a map there of the current arrangements. Just back to Māori wards, it is based on a legislative formula under the Local Electoral Act. We must use Māori and general electoral populations, and I put in there not electors because a lot of people get confused about electoral populations and electors. So we must base the formula on the electoral populations, and these are still unfortunately based on the 2018 census, but the Department of Statistics do update them every year, and the latest ones that we have available as of 30th of June 2023, which we have used here. You can see there for the district, there's about 10% of the district has a Māori electoral population, about 90% has a general electoral population as of June 2023. If we retain 9 councillors under this formula, then there will be 1 Māori ward councillor and 8 general ward councillors. If we increase the total number to 10, then it's 1 Māori ward councillor and 9 general ward councillors. I've just popped that last one. It may seem strange why I put it in there, but sometimes we get asked the question, what would it take if we wanted to have 2 Māori ward councillors, and then it would have to be a total of 16 councillors, being 2 Māori ward councillors and 14 general ward councillors. So what is a representation review? It's a review of council and community board membership and basis of election, including total number of councillors, how councillors are elected, and the legislation sets out you can elect them by wards or at large or a mixture of both. If wards, what are the number, the boundaries, the names, the number of councillors elected to each. And for community boards, the legislation requires that each representation review, a council must consider community boards. So council can consider community boards, can retain them, they can alter them, they can subdivide them, for example, or reduce them, or they can disestablish them in total. It's this process that community boards are looked at. If retained or altered, then we must look at the number of community boards, their names, their boundaries, whether they are subdivided. So you can have 1 community board that's actually subdivided into 2 or 3 if you wanted to. The number of elected members to each community board and the opportunity to appoint councillors to each of those community boards comes at this stage. So the review is quite prescribed. It's a formal process contained in the Local Electoral Act. It's reasonably complex and therefore we need to get it right. As I said, it was as prescribed. We have legal compliance, we have certain dates that we must adhere to, and we can't go past legal dates. I popped in their documentation because should the whole process be referred to the Local Government Commission, which it likely is, because one of the wards, if wards are retained, will go outside the plus or minus 10%, and I'll get onto that shortly. If that is the case, then it must go on to the Local Government Commission, and they require quite stringent documentation about the whole process. How did we consult? Who did we consult? All the presentations and reports and resolutions and all that sort of thing, so it's quite important. And the third point there is public consultation. The Commission is quite strong on how did the Council consult with its communities, with iwi, with its community boards, and that all has to be documented, as I said earlier, to forward on to the Commission. This is a formal process. We cannot start it before the 20th of December last year, and it must be finished or completed by the 20th of December this year. So we have a 12-month window there. My advice to all our councils is to start early. It is a reasonably complex process. Look at the impacts of other council functions or processes such as the LTP. Look at consultation, over consultation or whatever, so that we get a good response from the community. So what must we consider when undertaking a review? There are 3 key principles. First of all, communities of interest, effective representation, and lastly, fair representation, which you may be aware of the plus or minus 10% rule. First of all, communities of interest. These do need to be identified. They're not legally defined, but the Local Government Commission has these 3-dimensional concept. I won't read them out. They'll be on the slide there and available in hard copy. So it's a perceptual sense of belonging, functional, the ability to meet the reasonable economy, the community's requirements, and political. Probably in better, more day-to-day English, it's a sense of community identity and belonging. And that can be reinforced by physical and geographical features, similarities in economic or social activities, similarities in demographic, socio-economic and or ethnic characteristics, History of the area is important, and also important is Rohe Takiwa area of local iwi and hapu. Once you've got your communities of interest identified, you can actually group similar communities of interest together. You are able to have isolated or island communities, and we have an isolated community in Coromandel Colville, or have had for quite a number of years. And just note there that communities of interest can change over time. So this is why it's required that a council must undertake a review at least every 6 years, really just to reflect changes in characteristics, changes in the community and population and that sort of thing. The second part is effective representation. We need to consider how the communities of interest are most effectively represented. What is the best number of councillors? Now, under legislation, a council can have a range between 5 and 29 councillors. So we currently have 9. So the question would be asking, is that reasonable? Is that the best for this district? Should it go to 10? Should it go down to 6? Should it go to 15? Those sort of questions we need to ask. And once we've established what's the best number, most effective for the council, for the district, how should the councillors be elected? Should they be elected from wards, at large, or a mixture? If at large, how many councillors would provide effective representation for the district as a whole? For wards, how many councillors for each ward would provide effective representation, both for the ward and for the council? And what are the names and boundaries of each ward? As I said earlier, we must consider community boards. So the question there is, should there be communities and community boards? And it's a yes, no for that question. And then if it's a yes, how many community board members should there be? There's a range between 4 and 12. And how many of those should be elected and how many should be appointed? Those appointed members, of course, are councillors from the ward in which the community board is within. If community boards, what are the names and boundaries, and should they be subdivided? The last one is fair representation. That's a population equity. Generally means each elected member represents about the same number of people within plus or minus 10% range. We call that the 10% rule. And this applies between general wards. So we have currently four wards, and we have to make sure that they fall within that plus or minus 10% unless there are extenuating circumstances such as Coromandel Colville. If we have more than one Maori ward, which we probably won't, then that has to comply with within the plus or minus 10% between the Maori wards. And if council decides to subdivide community boards, then the community boards, or the subdivisions of each community board, must fall within that plus or minus 10% range. I've done a couple of scenarios here just to get a feel for the process we have to go through. So first one is if we retain 9 councillors, that's the current number, retain the current general ward boundaries, and that would then be 1 Maori ward. So that's one Maori ward councillor and 4 general wards electing 8 councillors. So that brings you 9. And you can see there at a glance with the red that of the 4 current wards, which would then be the 4 general wards, 3 do not comply quite distinctively outside, minus 25, which is Coromandel Colville, minus 32, minus 12. And the only one that would comply is Southeast. So with the one Maori ward, that has to be district-wide. It's still called a ward, but that's elected district-wide. And the 4 existing general wards, in this scenario, we reduce the number of general ward councillors to 2 for Mercury Bay General Ward. Under the scenario, Coromandel Colville General Ward, Mercury Bay General Ward and Thames General Ward will not comply. Only one would. Coromandel Colville probably would be exempt because of its isolation. And this is likely not to find favour, in my view. I have to put that in. You could change out, reduce where I've got in there Mercury Bay reducing to 2, you could put it Thames reducing to 2, but it has the same effect. The second scenario I've just put up there just to stimulate discussion really is if we increase the 10 councillors, we retain the current general ward boundaries. We have 1 Maori ward councillor and 4 or 9 general councillors elected from 4 general wards. Same boundaries again. So we have there Coromandel Colville non-compliant, which we're aware of and are likely to get an exemption. Mercury Bay and Thames comply nicely, quite close. Southeast Ward is slightly over at 11.39%. If I look down there, it's that Southeast Ward at 11.39% is only 47 people. So that would probably be quite an easy nudge, if you like, of a boundary, just to nudge 47 people into another ward. Or alternatively, we could seek an exemption if nudging those 47 people was deemed a breach of their community of interest. Then we could go to the Local Government Commission and say, look, these 47 people, this area should be retained within the Southeast Ward. That is their community of interest, and then go for a dispensation on that along those lines. I've been quite provocative here, deliberately. If we increase to 10 councillors and we combine current general ward boundaries into 2 general wards, so we'd have 1 Maori ward with 1 Maori councillor and 2 general wards with 2 general councillors. So there would be 2 general wards by combining the east and the west. So combine the existing Mercury Bay and Southeast wards and combining the Coromandel, Colville and Thames wards. And you can see there it fits well within the plus or minus 10% and retaining your Maori ward, which is district-wide. So with 1 Maori ward district-wide and 2 new general wards, east and west, we retain the same number of general ward councillors at 9. And both general wards would then comply with the plus or minus 10% rule. So it's not a definite, but certainly that is worth some consideration. Community boards, as mentioned, a representation review must include whether any community should be established, abolished or united, whether any community boundaries should be altered, whether any community should be subdivided, the number of members and the number of appointed members. So this is the opportunity to review this, and changes may be required or no changes at all. So on to nearing the end, on to considerations. Do the current 4 wards still reflect our communities of interest, or should there be fewer, or should there be more? What do iwi hapu consider is best for the Maori ward? We certainly should be consulting with Maori on the name. We may also be consulting on the names of the general wards as well, because this is the opportunity to change names if we wish to. Are councillors about right in total? Should we have more or should we have less? Do we do a clean slate approach to the review? In other words, look at our external boundaries, clean up away the internal boundaries and start from fresh? Or do we minimise the process and just use current ward boundaries? Are there any minor changes required? Should we consider larger wards or smaller wards or district-wide wards? And then community boards, that needs to be addressed. And I guess I've just popped in there, are there any known issues that we need to consider? Because this is the opportunity to take into consideration any known issues in the communities. I'll just hand this over to Ari now to talk the next couple of slides on consultation.
Yes, thank you, Dale. Yes, the governance are undertaking the preliminary engagement. So we have a survey that council has been provided feedback for, and this will be launched early next week. There will be hard copies will be made available at the libraries, service centres, and we hope to attend some market days. We are asking the community for informal feedback, which we will take into consideration in developing the initial proposal, which will take place in April. I think that is about all, as you can see, just from the objectives. We're just seeking the informal feedback, but this is just to help with the development of our initial proposal. So that will take place where the councillors will meet again and do a briefing in April, and we will take on board the information and feedback from the community. After that, once we do our initial proposal, we also have to do a more formal process, and this is when we will formally go out with our initial proposal, and we will hold a more informal consultation where the public can actually submit, and we will also hold hearings. Thanks, Dale. I'm not sure if you would like me to share my screen just to show like a bit of an image, but you might lose your place in your presentation. So I think I will not share it, but if anyone would like to see the material, it will be out next week.
You've covered that one off, Ari. Happy with that? Move on.
Yes. So once again, if I was sharing it, I would just be talking about the fact that we will have a landing page on our website, and that will have the online survey also made available. There will be information such as this recording will be up there so that the general public can see that too, and also hear any questions from the community boards because it's very relevant for the community. So yes, that's all. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you. Thanks, Ari. So nearly there, just on the timetable, second to last slide, or last slide actually, we had a briefing with the council on the 14th of February. Following on from that, we have today's briefing with community board members. As Ari said, preliminary community engagement ending the end of March. A second council briefing on the 30th of April or end of April. That's really going to be a summary of that early consultation. What is the community saying? What's the public saying? And then we can develop some scenarios from that feedback and present it to the council, which I believe community board members are also going to be invited to all the briefings. There's a third briefing scheduled for sometime in May if required. That's really just further deliberations on what's the best outcome. There can only be one initial proposal that goes out in the formal process, and we're looking at the 28th of May council meeting for a formal resolution on adoption of an initial proposal. Once that is resolved, then we have 14 days in which to publicly notify that one, calling for submissions, and then we'll have a submission period from the 7th of June to the 19th of July. It's about 5 or 6 weeks, I think, for that. And that's the start of your formal process, so people can then make submissions. Council will then hear those submissions during August. They'll have another briefing to look into feedback from the submissions, and they'll have a final council meeting, a council meeting on the 3rd of September to make the final proposal. The final proposal can actually be the same as the initial proposal, or it can alter depending on the feedback from the submission process. Once the final proposal is resolved, it's the similar process. There's public notice is made, and then there's another period in which people can object or appeal that decision, another 5-week period. It just will take one objection or one appeal to be received, and the whole matter is referred onto the Local Government Commission or as I said earlier, if one of the wards, for example, is outside the plus or minus 10%, then it's deemed an appeal and must also be referred on to the Commission. And they have until the 10th of April next year to make a determination on whether the council got it right or whether the Commission wants to make any changes. So that's it in a nutshell. So I will stop sharing now. Is that okay, Ari, or do you want to, so that you can open it up for questions?
Yeah, no, that's fine. We will just get the girls to start disabling everyone so they are able to have a kōrero with us. Thank you, Jen. So we've now opened it up for questions, and I think we do have a few that are in the chat, so we'll just move to those first. The first one is from Martin. Martin, are you available? Did you want to speak to that, Martin? Or do you want me to just read it out?
I'm fine with you just reading it out, Ari.
Okay. So Martin's just asking, is it detailed somewhere that councillors are automatically appointed to community boards? I guess that's the first question. Would you be able to answer that one first, Dale?
No,
Thank
it's
you.
not. It's not automatic. It's a may under the legislation. So some councils do not appoint back. Most do, but the qualifications are the appointed members to the community board must be councillors from the ward in which the community board is located. And don't forget that you're likely to have a Māori ward, so that councillor could be appointed because all community boards would be within the Māori ward. And the second requirement is you can only have up to half the total number of community board members as appointed members.
Great, thank you. And the second question that Martin had in that particular chat was, I think that councillors had to swear a separate oath to be on the community board, but I just wondered if that was prescribed somewhere. And I'm happy to answer that one, Dale.
Yes, please.
Cool. Okay, so where we've been given advice from local government, and that is actually part of the good governance guide for appointing members back to community boards. So based on that and the advice that we were given from the local government, that is what we decided, that it was in the best interest to do it that way. We also have another question from Martin just in regards to, will the preliminary community engagement include community boards, meetings, workshops? And I think Dale did sort of discuss that towards the end. So yes, when we come back to do the summary of all the feedback that we get from the community engagement, we will look to also invite all elected members to that. Whether or not they would like to attend in person is different. They will be able to have the ability to be online too. Cool. Is there any other questions? Yes, Kashan. You're still on mute, Kashan.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Just a small question. I see there's lots of people been missing. There's not attending Zoom meeting. Any chance to have reschedule which involve all councillors and all committee board members to go through this one? Because I think someone missing out on that subject.
Oh, kia ora, Kashan. Thank you for that question. Yes, we do have a few that are missing out today. We try to do this session online. I don't know if we'll do another session, but we'll definitely be visiting the community board separately just to have another kōrero. But this is being recorded, so there might be some provisions for maybe for the area managers to get the community board members in. We do hope to put this on our website too, so that it is available for the general public to have a look at too.
Thank you.
sure if there's any other questions from anyone. Doesn't appear to be.
Got enough lightly.
You certainly have. Well, I think if there's no other questions from anyone, we could probably at least stop the recording from here.